Hey guys, it's Katie. I wanted to do a tutorial on UV resin because I haven't shown how I UV resin any of my projects. So I wanted to show you guys how I UV resin. There are tons of tutorials. There's many different ways you can do UV resin. This is just how I do it. A few things you're going to need. You're going to need some kind of UV resin. Now, the one I've been using lately is this quick curing resin by Decor. I get it off of Amazon. The first bottle, small bottle, the 60 gram I got, was this bluish one. And then the second bottle, the largest bottle, that's 200 grams, is this pinkish one. But from everything I can read on it, it's exactly the same. So I get it off of Amazon. It's Decor UV resin hard. Okay. This stuff cures in 2 to 4 minutes, which is why I like it. Now, with using a quick curing UV resin, you may get some distortion. And there are a few things you can do to counteract that, which I'll show you in a minute. The other resin I've tended to use is the Easy Dome resin. Now, the Easy Dome resin takes about 30 minutes to cure. When I was first using it in the winter, the outer layer was still sticky, even after like an hour and a half in my UV light. What I found is if I wiped it with a lower alcohol, not 99%, but like 70% alcohol, it seemed to take that layer of stickiness off. And I don't know why it was doing it at first. It doesn't seem to be doing it anymore when I use it. The Easy Dome is a little bit thinner than the Decor. That's one thing I've noticed. And it's more expensive and harder to find, the Easy Dome, because you can only buy it off of RJ Crafts. So I do have 2 bottles of it. It works great. It's nice and clear. But I have been using the Decor because it's a lot cheaper and it's easier to get on Amazon. So that's the one I use. Now, let me grab a couple pendants so I can show you what happens with the quicker curing resins compared to a slower curing resin. So let me grab a couple pendants so I can show you that. Okay, so here are a few pendants, and I wanted to show you the difference in them. Let me grab this other one here. Where is it? Right here. Okay, so thicker pendants, I don't seem to get a lot of distortion. Now, you have to think of the resin shrinking as it cures, okay? And if it cures really quickly, it's going to cause your pendant to kind of bend in a little bit, okay? So the thicker pendants, I don't get much bending. This one kind of did on the end, but like a thinner one like this, you see how it's a little warped, which I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all. This is a thinner one, just very slightly warped. This is the same thinner one. This end got a little warped a little bit. It's hard to see that, but you see how it bent it a little bit. And that one I resined both sides. This one's resined on both sides, and it kind of bowed it in the middle. So there's like a dip right here, but it actually gave it a little more dome. On my thicker ones, just very slightly. It's a little curved. And then this is a thinner one, again, that I already showed you, a little curved. This is a thicker one, very slightly curved. So that does not bother me at all. If that is going to bother you, I would not use a 2 to 4 minute curing resin, okay? That's just a pointer. If that's going to bug you, don't use it, because it's going to happen. Now, a trick that someone had posted that I had learned is, I apologize, my dogs are barking, is taking some sort of tape, and this has dust and stuff on it, taping it down and then sticking so this is duct tape, sticking your pendant to it. But unless you have this tape down really tight, it will still pull up. So you can try that. With the longer curing resins like the Easy Dome, you won't get the warping of the pendant. So it just depends, 1, how much you want to pay. 2, if you want to pay more for not having that, then great. But if you don't mind the cheaper stuff and this little domey type thing doesn't bother you, then I wouldn't, I guess it really just depends on your preference. If that really bothers you and you want to pay double the money, go for it. Both resins work great. And these are the main ones that I've tried. I mean, I do have the Lisa Pavelka oh, what is it called? It's not the poly bonder, but the shiny one. I can't think of it. And I do, trying to grab it, sorry. I do also have the Tiny Pandora, because that's where I got my light, from the Tiny Pandora. I also have her resin, which is not in here. The Brush On Deep Shine, or the Brush On, yeah, Deep Shine. And the Tiny Pandora is also called Deep Shine. So I've tried these. Don't quite love them as much. That's just my preference. That's just me. So try a bunch of different ones. But I did buy the Tiny Pandora Light, which came with a set. It came with that little bottle, that 1 fluid ounce, and it came with this brush in here, which I just keep in here, because as long as you keep it covered, it doesn't harden. Okay, so there's that. Let's get to doing it. So the other thing you're going to need is some kind of toothpick, which is what I tend to use. I use a toothpick, so I have one setting here because I just did a couple pendants just on a cellophane, but you can set it on tissue, whatever, because it has resin on it. So I found one of my fiance's packs of cellophane I took. And then I bought this Jessima Design. It looked like she used this resin mat. It's literally on Amazon. I looked up resin, or I looked up either resin mat or silicone mat. There's tons of silicone mats out. You can even use a baking silicone mat. You just want something with texture. That way if your resin does leak off, it goes down in and it doesn't cover the hole. Because what it'll do is it'll leak off if this is on a flat surface, and you'll get it all over your back. So if you do get a spill, you want it to go down into something. So if you're looking for a resin mat, find one with holes in it. I'm going to take the 2 that I just did out so I can show you how I have this set up, because I've cut it, because this thing is huge. I mean, it's huge. And that won't fit in my light. So hang on one second, let me grab my pendants. Okay, so these are my 2 pendants that just came out just a second ago. And you can again see that the edges are slightly warped up a little bit. Like that. You see it? But again, that doesn't bother me at all. Here's the other one. Right there. Okay, so what I did was I took my piece and I cut it. I have this little, I mean, honestly, it's like a piece of foam that I put in tin foil. Just so it reflects some of the light, but whatever you want to set it on. You could set it on a tile and then put this on it. I just wanted to reflect some light, so I wrapped it in tin foil. That's not necessary, it's just something I did. I tend to put this little pointy thing point side up and rest them on the points. You'll also need a torch. So you're going to need resin, toothpick, torch, and something to set it on. The good thing about the silicone compared to something like this, if the silicone drips, it just flicks right off. So if you're putting it on straight on a tile, if your resin leaks onto that tile, it's hard to get the resin off the tile. I hope this is all making sense. So we're going to be doing this pendant here. And there are a lot of better videos. I just wanted to show you how I do it. That way you know how I finish my pendants. This is a tutorial I just did. And this is how we'll finish them. So this is going to be weird with the camera right in front of my face, but we're going to take some. This bottle's empty, but I wanted to show you the bottle because I still had it just in case you get a blue one. So what I do is I'm going to pour some out. I generally pour some in the middle. Okay. And you're better off going with a little amount than too much. Okay. Then I generally pick it up. And you're going to take your toothpick and drag it from the middle around the edge. And this stuff is nice and thick. You can see this better on camera than I can see it in real life. Just drag it up to the edge. Just to get the edges coated. And as you've probably learned, if you're watching these kind of tutorials, you've probably watched others, resin will hold tension, just like a bubble of water. If you fill up oh, I got a hair in it, a dog hair. If you fill up a cup with water, you'll get that, and look at it from the side, you'll get that tiny little dome. Resin will do the same thing. So as long as you don't drag it over the edge, the resin will do the same thing. And again, this camera is literally like 1.5 inches away from my face. Probably a foot off my table, so it's really in my way. So I'm just trying to get it to coat the edge. Usually I do it a lot smoother, but... And then cover everything. And tilt it slightly. You don't want to tilt it too much, but you can reflect it in the light to see if everything's covered. Okay, so that's our first coat right there. And I usually generally only do one coat unless I really mess up. What I'm going to do now is add another little bit of resin to kind of get myself a little dome. So I'm going to again start in the middle. I'm going to drip some out, and it should fill out to where I already pushed it, to the edges. And then I'm going to check. Now sometimes on the resin you'll get a little pull back away from the edges. If you get a lot of, if you put the resin to the edge and it starts shrinking back into the middle, you definitely got to put more resin on. But I usually just put that layer and then put another second layer. Spread it out again. I'm sorry, this is going to be out of your view for a second. Maybe. I just got to look at it. I'm going to add a tiny little bit more. And then I'm going to spread that out just gently. Okay, so that's all we need. Good. Set that aside. Next, I use a torch. With UV resin, I find if I let this sit here, and even if I blew with a straw, like some people do, the bubbles wouldn't come out. And I do still get bubbles occasionally, like you can see 2 right there, but really, it's not that crazy noticeable when you're wearing them. So, I got this torch. It's made for creme brulee on Amazon. With this torch, all you have to do is pull back the lock and twist it to get the gas going. See? You can hear it. And then hit the on button. You don't want a super heavy flame, but a little flame. And you're going to quickly drag over. And then I do it a couple of times real quick. You don't want to hold it in one spot, and you don't want to go too long because you can overheat your resin. I'm going to hold it up to the light and kind of take a peek at it here. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I'm not really seeing anything pop. And as you've learned by watching my tutorials, I'm not over anal about this. And then I'm going to set this in my light. I usually do maybe 10 minutes total, just to make sure it's good and set. So I'm going to put this in my light. Okay, I'm going to show you my light, but do not mind my messy craft room, okay? So let me pause this and I'll show you where my light is. Okay, so this is my light, and you can see I have a fruit roll-up piece of cardboard taped on. And I found in the winter when it wasn't curing that because it was cold in my basement where I work, the lady at RJ Crafts, I think her name is Rhonda, she gave me this tip, either to put a piece of tin foil or something to cover my light. This is a tiny Pandora light. It has a 30-second switch in the back here, and then it has an on-off switch, just on-off. It comes with directions. If we look inside of it, let me just put that up there. I don't know how big this is, 6 inches maybe, the opening. And the tray comes in and out, but the tray is really, for me, hard to get in. So if I were to pull this tray all the way out, which you can fully remove it from the track, like the first time I tried it, I took this out, I put my pendants on it on my table, I did the whole resining thing, and then I went to slide it in, and it was so hard to get in, I was afraid I was going to spill my resin off my pendants because I was having to manipulate it. So I just leave the tray in, that works better for me, and then bring something into the light. It's going to sit in there for about, like I said, about 10 minutes. This one has multiple lights that they come with. So this is a tiny Pandora one. You can see mine already warped on the corners there, and that's what it usually does. But that's as much as I will get. It does it really quick, because if I touch that right now, that thing's pretty set. I just want to make sure, 'cause the resin cures from the outside in, so the outside will feel pretty set, but the inside won't. So if you wanted to take it out and look at it right now and make sure, you could, and it wouldn't spill off. but you want to make sure you don't like push into it and get an indent. So I'm going to let that finish curing. And then hang on one sec, let me pause. And so this is what you'll get with that Decorum resin. It's quite clear. You may get a little bubble here or there, but you'll get that with any resin. I get that with the Easy Dome from RJ Crafts as well. This is nice to drill through. Just like any resin, you can drill through it fairly well. I don't really have any complaints with this resin. I use this on every single one of my pendants. I don't usually have to polish after. I do want to show you, if you overheat it, can you see the rippling effect in this one? So I got distracted or something and I left the torch on for just a second too long. And it kind of got that rippling effect, which actually in this one, I really don't mind it. It's only when you hold it at a certain angle. But this is kind of like a watery type pendant. It kind of reminds me of a beachy one. So I'd give it to a family member or something. It's not like something I would sell, but it's something it's not horrible. So if you end up leaving your torch on too long, that will happen. I think, you know what I was trying to do? Get out a bubble. I thought it was a bubble, and I think it was a dog hair in my resin, which I realized at and after. Now, if I applied another layer of resin to this, it'd probably clear that up easily. So, all of this was done with that Decorum, or let's see, what is it? Yeah, Decorum resin. So that's how I will be finishing my pendants. After I resin them, I always drill them with a hand drill and then put a jump ring and a bail on. And then I always wear mine on a black cord or a colored cord. So I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please like, share, comment, ask me any questions you may have. I may be able to answer them, I may not. I haven't tried hundreds of brands of resin. I've tried 4. And I've just settled on one I like. But that's how I do my resining for my pieces. I will see you with the next project. Bye.